You are listening to the Sovereign and Soul podcast. I'm your host, Meikel. I have been a soul and sovereignty coach for over 6 years, and we are bringing it to the airwaves because it's so necessary to talk about this work, to talk about how if you know the truth about you, that empowers you. And that's what I do. That's what I do as a guide and as a coach. I teach you about you. You will learn what you need. You will learn how to heal yourself. I will remove those blocks with you for you to find your most fulfilled life. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Sovereign Soul podcast. It's Tuesday, so we're going to tune in. Take a moment wherever you are. If you're in the car, keep those eyes open. But you can still ground in the car. You can literally ground and call yourself home to your body in the present moment wherever you are. Take a moment to become aware of your body. Guide your attention to your lungs and notice how they feel, rising and falling, your own natural breath pattern. And then become aware of all the parts of you that are in the past, in the future, and anywhere else that you have sent your energy. Call it home to your body and to this present moment. See if you can become aware of 3 or more emotions that you're experiencing right now. Name them. You can say them out loud. You can write them down. You can just think them. We're just naming. And then notice where you're experiencing these emotions in your body. And if it feels right to you, offer some gentle touch here. If your mind is racing, allow it. If you are judging these emotions, okay. Allow yourself to be right where you are. Guide your attention to your breath. And take 3 conscious breaths. In through the nose. Push it out through the mouth. In through the nose. And out through the mouth. Last one, make it count. In through the nose. And out through your mouth. And just notice what's shifted for you. This practice is available to you every moment of every day, and it doesn't even have to be that long. You can simply guide your attention just to your breath. You don't have to alter it. You don't have to change it. Just become aware. Become present. Come back home to your body in this moment and say, do I want to keep choosing what I'm choosing? It's that simple, and it's that hard. Okay. I'm so excited about today's. Today we are getting into the laws of personal sovereignty. And today we will be talking about the first two. The first, allow others to be who they are. Accept that you have no control. And the second is allow yourself to be who you are. Accept that this is the only thing you can control. And so these are grouped for obvious reasons, because not only are they the first and second, but makes sense, right? We're talking about control. We are talking about the allowing of what is and the acceptance of what is. And this is a great place to start because human beings love to think they have control over things that they do not. We want it. We want those things. We would love to be able to control the outcome of things, other people, our experience. But we've got it a little backwards. We're going outside of ourselves to do that. And that's actually impossible. And so we then see where the harm occurs, the problem occurs, where the resistance becomes present. And so why do we control? Why do we want control? Well, we want safety. We want emotional, physical, and psychological safety. We also want stability. And so this psychological control that we then try to have over outcomes, situations, experiences, and people, and then also physical and emotional, it's providing this false sense of order and predictability in our lives. And it helps us cope with uncertainty. And what we're forgetting is the only thing that is certain is uncertainty. Trying to use control to have certainty in places that we have no control over, this is mismanagement of your energy because it's not actually possible. So in previous episodes, I've talked about perfectionism, right? And why would we use our energy towards something that's impossible? That's just wearing us out for something that isn't possible. So why would we do that? So this becomes very practical. How do you want to use your energy? Well, let's use it towards things that are actually possible. And so this is why we call our energy home to ourselves, our body, in the present moment. Because if we can only control ourselves, which is true, and if you want to boil it down, it's just our thoughts. Okay. And so let's run through the basics of your emotional life, right? There's the stimulus or the trigger, and that leads to a thought. That thought creates an emotion, and then we either react or respond to that emotion. And what emotional intelligence is, what sovereignty is, in its essence, is creating space between that reaction time, which is super close to the emotion, or to response, where all of a sudden you've opened up this freedom to choose, this freedom to control what you actually have control over, which is just you. And so that's where you want to place your energy. Trying to control other people, trying to control situations that you don't have control over, again, it doesn't make any sense. And so sovereignty is learning how to manage your energy, and that you are the manager. You're the boss, right? And so you are paying close attention to everywhere that you have energy leaks, where you're giving your energy away, where you are misusing it, wasting it, essentially, for things that you actually need it for. So why do we do this? Control can also get us influence and power, or perceived. I guess sometimes it's actual, but essentially it's always perceived, because when people wake up, you no longer have power over them. And that's when things get real exciting and messy. We try to control because of fear. We're trying to keep some outcome that we are afraid of from happening. And then we are also trying to self-protect. If you're a grown-up, you've been harmed, you've been hurt. And so the control comes in where it's like, I will not be hurt again. I won't be caught off guard. I will not be humiliated. I will not be left out. But self-protection and protection in general, right? And I hear this a lot in this community, in spiritual community, in the self-help community. It's like, you get to protect yourself. This is where we're going to get into a little bit of the semantics of it. If you're trying to protect yourself from something, then you have defenses up. That means that you are energetically connecting with the thing that you don't want to be connected to. And so the protection is not necessarily protection in the sense of like a shield or defensiveness. It's in the releasing of this energetic relationship that you are either choosing to not have by not connecting with it, or when you make something your enemy, when you're like, I have to be protected from this perceived threat. You've now created an energetic bond with it. So same coin, different side, right? Or it's like, there's this evil and I'm the good. And so we've now created the epic battle. Instead of harmonizing that duality and saying, this doesn't have power over me at all, because I manage my own power or energy. It's an interesting concept because people argue with me all the time about this. It's like, well, there are bad things out there. There's all these things that I must protect myself and my family. And it's a perception. It's a thought pattern that you have now created as truth. When if you don't engage with it, then it ceases to become a problem for you. Something to think about. The other reason that we try to control is for social acceptance and conformity. So societal norms, to meet expectations, to fit into established social structures and avoid the potential judgment or rejection. This is tribalism. Okay? Tribes were created to keep us safe. They were not created to set us free. But you have to adhere to these strict rules of the tribe or of the group and essentially give your power to them, because it's like they only allow you to behave within these certain parameters. Otherwise, you're out. And because one of our deepest core needs is to belong, why would we get ourselves kicked out of the tribe? Why would we want that? And our caveman brains are like, well, if we do that, then we are, the dinner for the saber-toothed tiger, or, whatever is accurately attacking cavemen. And so this tribalism and separation consciousness, these two things are related, which bear with me here, because, right, the tribe would be many, and then separation would mean you are separate from. However, with separation consciousness, okay, and tribal consciousness, they are actually the same thing. Okay. And so when a tribe or a group, and we've done this for as long as humans are alive, it's like our group is better than your group. And there's no group that's as good as our group. And that causes the individual to say, I'm better than, I'm the best at, I am, right? And I can't rely on people because of the aforementioned scarcity, because of not wanting to be rejected, because if I have my own thoughts and they are not agreed upon by the group, then I'm out. And so think of separation consciousness as division consciousness. Okay. And that we've been divided into tribes forever. And we still are. And the tribes are just evolving, right? And so whatever tribe you belong to, this can be religious, this can be your family, this can be feminism, this can be atheism, whatever it is. You and this tribe and this group and this separation from others, this creates fractures and division. And so we aren't looking at abundance. We are not working with it. We are not working with anything but scarcity, fear, and shame and protection and defense. What we're seeing out in the world is separation consciousness. Okay? It's tribal consciousness. And it's reflective of what is going on within the individual. There is a division of self. There is a separation in our bodies. And really, at the core of it, we are separated, our head and our heart. Our mind and our heart are not talking to each other. We have created blocks. What everyone is looking for is actually to heal this. And when people are talking about world peace, is what they're talking about. We are not separate from each other, and we are not separate in ourselves. And so divinity, source, God, whatever it is, you are not separate from it. God is not outside of you. Source is not outside of you. Universe is not outside of you. When we separate that, we cause our own fractures. And then it just follows. Everything is then fractured. And so then we find people who will back up our way of thinking so that we don't feel alone, and yet we feel alone. It doesn't make sense. The problem that we find in separation consciousness, tribal consciousness, is that we are then going, not only are we going externally for everything, right? Our validation, our belonging, our spirituality, the rules, our integrity, our morality, everything is outside of us. And that means that there are very clear lines of what is right and wrong. Now, hold on. What I mean is, it's all or nothing thinking. It's black and white thinking. There is no nuance. There is no critical thinking. There isn't taking into account that we are complex beings. And so therefore, results of our lived experiences are going to then produce complexities. Our brain, our survival network wants things to be black and white, right or wrong, so that we can cut off those pieces of ourselves or those people who are the perceived enemy. So when we do that, we're giving our power away. Okay. And so now it's become common knowledge that children went from birth to about 7 years old are essentially programmed. We're these open, blank, codable little beings who are just sponges that are just taking it all in. And so we then, because we need to stay safe, because we are children and we rely on the adults around us, we learn really quickly to give away that power because we perceive that we don't have any. And there's a lot of truth to that when you're a child. And so this is where it becomes really interesting. Up until, I guess now, and it is still happening, we are passing on our inherited separation consciousness, our tribal consciousness, to our children. Now, some of this, children just pick up and perceive. We don't have to tell them. And look, in our DNA, every single person that had a hand in making us, and their lived experiences are written into our bodies. And so we don't have to necessarily pass this on verbally. This is the energetics of it. The energy speaks louder than the things that we are saying. And so when this stuff is coded into us, we learn how to give our energy away. And we learn about black and white thinking, about all or nothing thinking, and that if we do this, then we will be out, and we don't want that. And we learn about protection before we learn about grace, before we learn about forgiveness, before we learn about complex thought. To sum it up, we are not raised with curiosity. And to have that nurtured, we are raised in judgment and conformity. And so then we learn to be these batteries, essentially, where we're giving all of our energy and power to whatever group you'll belong to. So to become empowered, how do we do that? Well, you become sovereign, but you consciously choose to start to become aware of where your energy is going. Where are you giving it, and not where is it being taken from me? It all comes down to choice. Choice and responsibility, but not necessarily in the way that we were raised to understand that concept. At the beginning of all these, it's a tune-in, right? We're tuning into our own bodies, becoming aware, and calling ourselves home to this present moment. That is the beginning of energy management. That is the beginning of showing yourself that you have choice in every single moment of every single day, that you can choose to do something different. This is the fundamentals of empowerment. Remember, empowerment is also something that colloquially has become misused. It's like, oh, but really what's out there right now is empowered women empower women. Sure, that's great. However, are we teaching them, and this is everybody, not just women, are we teaching them that empowerment means you're the only one that can actually empower yourself? And that I'm going to show you, okay, by modeling what that looks like. And yes, we give opportunities, right? Don't get it twisted. What I'm saying is, we think that someone has to come and tap us on the head and be like, and I have empowered you now. Only you can do that. And so something that's interesting to me is in these self-help movements. And they're wonderful. Do not get me wrong. We need all of this. We need the introduction to this. We need it to become normal. We're normalizing it, right? However, we're now forming new tribes and new ways to separate. Good vibes only. Only high vibration here. Oh, do you eat meat? No. I'm sorry. You're out. I get a little sassy about this. Forgive me. But do you see what I'm saying? It is the same shit, different pile. To heal this tribal consciousness, the separation consciousness, the division, we must become whole within ourselves. That does not mean that we create a new sets of arbitrary rules where people are in or out. What it means is that we go inward and take responsibility and accountability for where we're giving our energy away. And that is hard. We would rather do it in a group. We would rather not have the full weight of our experience as a human being on ourselves. Because we believe, and this is one of the fundamental fears I have found in people, that if we do this, we are making a deal with the universe, with God, with Source, that we will be alone forever. Because if nobody agrees with me, all of a sudden, I am isolated. And so, when I started doing this work, I would joke with the people I was hiring for marketing and stuff. And I was like, hey, the marketing for this kind of sucks. It's like, hey, would you like to feel worse before you feel better? Do you want to be isolated for a long time and go through several dark nights of the soul and, kind of have everybody think you've lost your mind and you're crazy? Does that sound great? Cool. Call me. And now it's like, well, yeah, that's what it is. And when you have the eyes to see, you will see that the isolation is solitude and that it is a gift because you will learn to hear yourself. You will learn to trust yourself. Are you going to make mistakes? Yep, 100%. It's the best. No, it sucks, but it's incredible after that. No. Let's talk about God, Source, angels. Okay. Let's talk about the unseen. Okay. The other side. My belief system is based off now what I have personally experienced. Do I think there's another side? I do. I have too much evidence to the contrary. And what I know in my own body as truth is I am a guided being. And that guidance that I receive is only for me. Some people call them downloads. Some people call them revelation, whatever it is. Those are for you. Obviously, I'm sharing my experiences. I'm sharing some of the things, but it's just information to you. Does that hit? Great. Take what's yours and leave the rest. If none of it hits, great. It's not for you. It's as simple as that. But I do know that what this emotional work has done for me is cleared my body to become an open vessel to receive that guidance that is for me. And all of a sudden, I'm not alone. But I had to go through the solitude first. I call it solitude now because now I understand it. It was isolation at first, and it was terrifying. Now, there's an example in the Bible of this. It's when Jesus wandered in the desert for 40 days, and the devil was like dancing on his back, or, that's the story, right? He was dancing. I get the Bible. But that's what this is. How do you know who you are? Unless you've actually met yourself and met your quote unquote demons. This is hard work, transformative because of it. So tribal consciousness, separation consciousness will, generally speaking, find something to rally around, right? A savior, the answer, the one. Okay. Every epic story has a hero, the one who comes to save the day. It is easier for us to give our responsibility and our power away to that hero, to that savior, than it is to take responsibility to realize that we must save ourselves. And that these heroes, saviors, they were here to show us how to do it. Obviously, this is a very, very controversial statement. But think about it. our heroes and saviors, look at what they go through. And we look at them as gods, either literally or as superheroes, because we're like, we can't do that. That's too hard for me. I don't want to do that. I want to be comfortable. And so we create these characters who are separate from us. And we put them up on a pedestal and we're like, well, they're the only ones that can do it. So when really we're saying, I don't want to take responsibility. And so sovereignty, empowerment is you developing the eyes to see it and the ears to hear it. Instead of giving your power away, instead of outsourcing this, you can see these enlightened beings that came before us to show us how to do it for ourselves. And that they weren't beings to then weaponize against others. They were here to harmonize the duality of it. And that everything that's happening within our self is reflected outwards. So right now, and for the last few millennia, tribalism, separation consciousness, fractured people, fractured world. So this is a big order. This isn't a small thing. And look, when I started this work, I'll be honest with you, I just wanted to be rich and comfortable because I was tired. I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to have to work as hard as I was working is a weird way to put it. But it's the mismanagement of energy. So I was depleted all the time. I wanted rest. I wanted to belong. I wanted to exhale. Because fast forward 8 years into this work, and I'm like, oh, okay. It keeps getting more interesting. And yet, am I a millionaire? No, not yet. Do I have rest? Every day. Do I have peace? Every day. Contentment? Every day. Not all day, every day. Calm down, okay? We're still humans. But it's there. And so we think of hope as something outside of us, when hope is a discipline that is cultivated from within. And so each day that I have that depth of rest in my soul, whether it's a minute or half the day, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the hope I need to keep putting one foot in front of the other and continue to go deeper into this self-empowerment, which is an oxymoron, by the way, because empowerment is just for yourself. Keep nailing that in. That's what we're looking for. Being human is not unlike a video game. And now it's so cool to me, actually, that we have developed these things in order to sort of explain our experience. It's no wonder video games are so popular. When you do this work, and I use that in big quotes, right? But when you go down this path of self-discovery, of self-healing, of whatever you want to call it, which is to heal your own fractures, to become whole in yourself, you will realize that life is very much like a video game. And that there are levels, right? And you pass a level and you beat the boss and you're like, I did it. I'm going to be good. And then you go to the next level and you're like, the hell? Why is this hard again? And you beat that one. And you beat that one. It gets really exciting when you realize that you beat the game and you switch to a new one. And you have all these skills from the last one. And it's just, we continue. And so the more that you are asking to heal, the more that you are asking to grow, Guess what causes that? Resistance. Being uncomfortable. So you can always take a break. You can like stay on the same level for a minute if you need to. Rest for a minute. It's all up to you. But every time you ask for more, you're going to get it. And so you're like, wait a minute, I didn't want to feel crappy again. I thought that there was this promised land. Arrival. It doesn't exist. You level up, you change games, you don't arrive, but you get to keep all the skills you learned. And we really don't want to arrive. Because then what will we do? The arrival is death, guys. When people come to me, they're like, I just don't ever want to experience pain again. And I'm like, about that. That's a bummer. What we will do is that you won't experience infected pain anymore. You won't suffer. Suffering is not needed. Pain is. And so you will experience the pain of being fully alive in the present moment when it's needed, and it will teach you, and then it will flow out. This is the flex, people. We keep trying to avoid pain. It's incredible to me what human beings will do to avoid pain. Clean pain, fresh pain, the fullness of it, right? In the moment. It's impressive, actually. And so we think that we don't want pain because the only thing that we've experienced is infected pain, compounded pain, metastasized pain. And you will need to move through it. You will need to alchemize all of that pain into wisdom and release what isn't yours. And then you get to feel clean pain. And as someone who experiences clean pain now, there is, I don't have the words to describe how that has changed my life. All I know is I used to suffer from debilitating anxiety and depression. And I don't anymore. I am a completely different person because I have a completely different nervous system. And because I cleared all of that infected pain. But to me, now, there's nothing better. Because now I have created possibility. Now I have created a life where I am creating my reality from the present moment and not from my past. I am no longer creating my life from rules that I inherited. Let me say that again. I create my life from the present moment and from my own chosen integrity. I choose it consciously and consistently. This is freedom. This is the peace you are looking for. This is the ease you are looking for. So, how do you get it? Awareness. You get to become aware of yourself. We start every one of these episodes with it. You take a minute to become aware of where you are, how your body's feeling, what's actually going on in your body. It gives you an opportunity to pause and be like, do I want to keep on this trajectory today that I'm on autopilot with? Do I want to keep suffering? So here's the bummer. Everybody wants the quick fix. Because why wouldn't we? I love instant gratification just as much as the next person. Can you be willing to start where you are? Can you be willing to understand that wisdom is earned and that you get to go through it? Because otherwise you don't actually learn it. No one else can do this for you. And so allow it to happen at the speed that your body is comfortable with, that you're comfortable with. Let it happen. And you become curious about the process. It's very interesting that I behaved in this pattern today. And then does it make sense? Yep, because I've been doing that for a really long time. And if you have been plugged into tribal consciousness and separation consciousness, it's going to take a minute. That's okay. This is where the divine feminine comes in. When we are talking about how to heal this, we're trying to heal something that was disharmonized patriarchy or masculinity and using those same concepts to try to heal. So it's like, how hard can we go? How fast can we go? How much can we force? Because we just have to be free of this. We can't keep doing this because every moment that we're like this means we're less than, means that we don't have the answers, means that we aren't healed. And it's not true. And so the divine feminine, the yin, the night, it's rest, it's gentleness, it's holding. And so we often talk about divine masculine, divine feminine. I talk about it as embodied. We are here to have a human experience. And yet we keep trying to transcend out of our bodies. Why do we do that? Once again, source, God, divinity, spirituality is not outside of you. It is inside of you. Our bodies are these just phenomenal, what are they? Bodies. We're meant to be in them. There's nothing wrong with your body in any capacity. Is it deteriorating? Sure. Do we call them meat sacks? Yeah. But really, when we think about the complexity of our bodies, our physical, now I'm speaking of the physical body. If you really stop and pause to think about how much is run off an autonomic nervous system, do you need any more miracles than that? So if we're trying to heal from disharmonized masculinity and disharmonized patriarchy, which I need you to hear this, I am not talking only about men. This is a concept. Women have taken this concept on. We are all responsible for disharmonized patriarchy and masculinity. Okay, so we talk about the wounded feminine. Okay, it's the suppressed feminine and the wounded masculine. The masculine needs the embodied feminine to help bring balance, to offer the gentleness, to offer that stillness that the embodied feminine can provide, to harmonize it and bring the two back into balance and then in harmony together. So the yin and the yang. And we look at that symbol as black and white when really it's supposed to be in motion. And so it is gray. Everything is vibrating. Everything is in motion all the time. It is when we try to isolate It's when we try to separate that it stops and so therefore becomes stagnant. We need flow. We need harmony. But it's something that we must learn how to do. Creating an enemy is not how we do it. Instead, we look at it and say, oh, this is not working. Not, this is now the demon. This is now the enemy. And that there is some perceived savior to that enemy. Do you see? Instead, we look at people and humanity as a whole and say, oh, we are out of balance. And we become curious about it and release judgment. And it's like, oh, what needs rest? What needs gentleness? What needs the gift of compounded time? So let's recap. We're talking about the first two laws of personal sovereignty. Allow others to be who they are, except that you have no control. Allow yourself to be who you are and accept that this is the only thing you can control. So when you're interacting with people, as you go throughout the day, allowing people to be who they are, it's instead of making a judgment on them, instead of taking it personally, you're just like, oh, this is who you are today. All right. I have no control over you. So I'm going to call my energy home. I'm not going to engage with this. I'm not going to link into this and now tether us together. And when you have no control over someone, this gets to be a very observed thing, right? It's like, oh, if you are being a dick to me, first of all, I won't allow it. But then it's like, oh, you're telling me about yourself. You are telling me how you feel about yourself because nothing is personal. Feels personal, not actually personal. When you don't have boundaries, then it becomes personal. But again, those are your responsibility. And so then allowing yourself to be who you are means wherever you are in this moment today, that is where you start from. Not, oh, if I could only be a little bit further, if I could only be a little bit more healed, if I could only be, humans love to try to start 20 to 100 steps from where they actually are. That's why we fall on our face, because you can't do that. Okay, here's where I am today. That's why we name our emotions. That's why we notice them. That's why we find them in our body. This is who and where I am today. Where do I want to go from here? This is what you can control. The management of your own energy. So when you are ready to heal the fractures within the self, to do this deep work, shadow work, the work, this is where you get to create new thought patterns and not adhere to the old stories. And so if you are like, if I only focus on myself, if I take the time to figure out my pain bodies, to figure out my fractures, to pour into myself first, oxygen mask on me, the fear is, will I be perceived as a selfish person? Will I then fail the people around me? And then the big one, which is, will I be kicked out of my tribe? You might. But again, tribes were created to keep us in the most fundamental version of physical safety. They were not created for our enlightenment, for our empowerment. And so when a group or a tribe or your family or whatever it is fails you, you get to meet all the emotions that comes with that. And there are many. But there's gratitude here. Thank you for loving me so imperfectly that I had to bounce. Because otherwise, if it's not uncomfortable, you would never change. You don't have to go to the gratitude first. Okay. Just like good vibes only, we don't do the thing where we just cover everything with a gratitude blanket when everything's a big, steaming, heaping pile of shit. That doesn't work. All I'm saying is like, to kind of put this into your consciousness is like, interesting. A different perspective. Something to think about. This is where I would like to talk about the wellness community at large. The self-help community at large. Nothing is inherently bad, and nothing is inherently all good either. Okay. And let's just do away with good and bad for a minute. Let's go with harmful and not harmful. What is happening right now is with this influx of being able to write, share, speak just about anything now, meaning we can talk about our wounds. We can talk about our pain. Therapy is very normalized. Do more people need to go? For sure. But we've come a long way. However, with all the books, with all the information, we are intellectualizing our healing. We are keeping it only in the mind. Now, if you are any part of the spiritual community, there's a lot of talk about how like the lower three chakras are the lesser of the chakras, and that like the upper half is like the more enlightened. They all need each other. Okay, so let's not do the ranking system of these things. They're meant to work as a full system. So when things, information, okay, all of this healing information is only in your mind, it's only information, meaning it is not truth for you. It is not embodied. We have the information. We literally have all the answers. Okay. Thank you, internet, for just exposing all of the things, right? And the access to all the information is there. We know how to heal ourselves. So why isn't there a mass healing? Is it getting better? Absolutely. But we're kind of like inching along when we could fly. Why? Because we're keeping it as information, because to do the actual work is so painful that we are doing the same thing we have always done, which is to sprint from it, to use our energy to avoid. And so I have clients all the time, and they have all the right things to say. And they're like, but why am I still experiencing blocks? Why am I still sad? Why? Because it's not embodied. Information is great. It's important. In fact, it's where we start. It's got to go in your mind first. But then you've got to do the work to become an open vessel so that it can go through all of the energy centers of your body, be processed in the way each energy center needs it to be processed, so that it can then become a part of you. Let me say that again. It's just information. So are we willing to move through this pain? That's the question. Are you willing to take responsibility for your healing when you weren't responsible for the harm? And so this goes back to fairness. I tell my kids all the time, fairness doesn't exist. Stop expecting it. I want to set their expectations real low, but fairness is not a thing. This came from tribalism. Can we equally divide all these things and be fair? No. It's separation. So in order to stop intellectualizing it and leaving this information as information and keeping it in the mind, you must go through the body. Clear it out. Reduce the noise. Now, some of you may have heard that groups are bad and that you got to do this all alone. No. We still need each other. And so we have these groups, okay, of people that you can trust who can mirror back to you the experience that you're having. So to have groups of people who are going through the same thing you're going through, right? Healing, whatever, so that you feel understood. This is really important. It's just that they can't do the work for you. You can't do this work by osmosis. You can't sit next to someone and be like, I think I got it. Jerry's got it. No. You can go back into these groups and be witnessed, be understood to the point that they can. And then you got to go back within. I act as a guide. I walk you up to this dense forest and you're like, I don't know where to go. And I'm like, well, I've cut through my own forest. So I'm going to start to just give you all of these tools so that you have the eyes to see where you can begin. And then, you'll start to cut a path and then, you can shout from that path, like, where do I go now? So then I come and follow you up to where you are and say, okay, here are a new set of tools, skills, things to do, but you cut the path. No one else can cut it for you. What's that famous quote? The road less traveled, but I chose the one that wasn't. I'm so good at this. The quoting. This is why these things are so important. We have, since the beginning of time, idolized people who cut their own path, who broke away from tribes. But then we do what humans do and we're like, okay, we're going to follow them then. It's like, no, they were showing us how to do it. Be inspired. Don't follow. When you do the work yourself, the reward is literally indescribable. I cannot describe to you what it is like to be fully sovereign. Now, to be clear, I'm probably not yet because I just changed games. And so now I'm learning all these new things. But I do know that I am listening to myself first. It doesn't mean that I don't let the collective reflect back to me my shadow. I also let them reflect back to me my goodness. But it's not where the source of it comes from. I am my own source. Allow others to be who they are. Accept that you have no control, because if you don't accept it, it will run your life and you will call it fate. Allow yourself to be who you are and accept that this is the only thing you can control. That second one was hard for me. It felt kind of devastating for some reason. And now, the energy I got back, these two things alone, if you just did these two things, your life will be unrecognizable. 1 year, 2 years, depending on. Understand what you actually have control over. Accept how little that actually is. And your world will open up in a freedom and possibility that you cannot imagine yet. Become your own source of power. This is universal consciousness, which is the antidote to separation, and tribal consciousness. This is the unity in the self, reflected outward. This is world peace. This is it. So using this as a foundation to be able to do that. Understanding that these two things will allow you to clear out the noise in your body and to release fear, scarcity, and shame. So, if you want to work with me, want to talk to me, you can find me at Meikel Reese on Instagram. You can find me at Meikel C. Reese on TikTok. You can find me on the YouTubes, which is my name, Meikel Reese. Or you can send a carrier pigeon, I suppose. Did I miss something? I always feel like I missed the things. You can listen to this podcast wherever podcasts can be found. And be gentle with yourselves.